Hello and welcome everybody to Around the Battleground. My name is LHS, and today we are joined by a very special friend of the show. We have Mr. FineOkay, solo laner for the solo laner formerly from Rival.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that works. I don't know how to address this in the offseason, but we've got FineOkay, one of the best solo laners in the league. How are you doing?
Pretty good, man. How about yourself? It's been a little bit.
It has been a little bit. It was in a crazy year. I think we talked to you right before the season really kicked off, and now we've got you again. Now that the season has, I was going to say kicked on because that would be the opposite of kicked off, but that doesn't work. Now that the season has finished, it's been a wild year. I don't know if you saw, but we've made the I've made the decision. This next year is gonna be my last year in Smite. I feel like
Oh, okay.
I'm finally
That's
gonna just hang it up.
Yeah, there's a lot of people doing that right now, which is obviously it sucks. I think it's understandable for a lot of people, but I don't know if it's exactly a bad sign for Smite. I feel like there's a lot of hidden talent in Smite right now. Obviously, I think it kind of shows that a lot of our veterans and all that are deciding to leave, which really sucks, like I said. But I think I still have some hope for Smite. So
I agree. I think everybody's saying that, like, anybody who says like this is the last year of Smite is like, that's just not realistic. We've at least got a season 8, right? Like that is,
yeah,
we've got 2 seasons in the bag at any one point. And I think this year is going to be weird because I feel like universally everyone looks at this last season as like, that was probably one of the best seasons we've ever had, or if not have had in a long time. I feel like everybody marks that this last season as like, I think the most competitive is like thrown around a lot. And going from that to this year, it's a lot to kind of live up to, especially with the added pressure of, them going down from 10 teams to 8 teams to make it more competitive when we already had a really competitive year. There's a lot of pressure on this year to be good. And if it doesn't meet up at all, like if it just falls short by like a step, people are going to complain and it's going to get blown out of proportion. So I largely agree with you. I think everybody's complained about Smite for the longest time being a boys club. Like some of the old heads still get in because they've just been around forever and we haven't seen new talent come through as much as we probably should. But now that I forget who said it, but like we've got like 17 or 7, so 7 or something like that. It was like a ridiculous amount of like people not returning for this next year in the SPL.
yeah,
And that's going to give, people a lot of chances. Like this challenger circuit is going to be ridiculous, but then the SPL I feel like is also going to be a little bit of a proving ground in of itself for a lot of these young talent. I think we can safely assume Sanguine got an SPL spot. I think we can probably assume that Sanguine roster's moving up in the SPL. Right. So that's
yeah.
that's going to be interesting. A lot of people said if you give those guys SPL practice day in and day out, whoa, what could they probably do? So that'll be fun. Like I think that'll be right. Like one of the bigger storylines of like tracking like what's the hidden talent, what is actually there.
Yeah. I think with the reduction to 8 teams in the SPL, I think it's the intended outcome may not like actually occur, because I think with what's happened this season, the beginning of this season, as somebody who's a free agent and kind of dive into that a little bit more, and especially because like Emilio has talked about it a little bit, is that because we're down to 8 teams, there's also obviously that's about, I would say 10. I mean, obviously there's exactly 10 players from last season that won't be playing this season, but then there's also a lot of players that just couldn't play last season, like at the beginning of the season or whatever, because of school or anything like that, that are now available. And there's a lot of new talent. There's a lot of like players like people from Sanguine, and then players like SML was stacked last year. Like everyone knows that. So there's a lot of people that could potentially be playing in the SPL right now. And since there's now only 8 spots instead of 10, that's 2 less spots. There's 10 people reduced. Combined with the fact that I mean, it's pretty general knowledge right now that some of the salaries have gone down and orgs have been trying to sign for a little bit less, not investing as much into the players and everything like that. Um, with all that combined, I actually think that it might be a little bit less competitive this season, just because I think people are going to be signing for less, and their orgs are going to be looking for potential players that are quick to jump on those lower salaries. Because
Mhm.
I mean, it's obvious a lot of people have retired, and part of the reason they've retired is because they're kind of I wouldn't say offended. I mean, they might be offended. I don't really care if they're offended or not, but they're kind of not open to the idea of like not live like living across the world for minimum salary and stuff like that. So I think it might end up having the opposite outcome, which is unfortunate, but sometimes that's just how the cookie crumbles.
Yeah, I think the SPL, I think, is definitely going to see a bit of a dip. But I think as stacked as SML was last year, I think
Yeah.
Challenger Circuit and Open Circuit this year are going to be just ridiculous. And,
Yeah.
we still don't know 100% that the current format that they put out is what's going to happen. They have been open to feedback. So we don't know if they're going to change anything. I think the biggest one was people don't want OC to get a guaranteed land spot for being number one. They feel like the promotion aspect is good enough for that. And so like if they don't remove that, we could see a lot of talent go down to the OC to like bypass to the CC. That's just what's going to happen. It's a smart business
Yeah.
decision at that point. But
Mhm.
from what I know, CC, I mean, we've already seen like Sino has said he won't play in the SPL, but he's going to play in like the SM, like the CC, right? We've seen a bunch of posts like that. I think Ice from EU, like EU was stacked as all hell last year with like old talent. And this year it's getting like an even bigger injection. Like
Yeah.
it's going to be gross at like
Yeah.
the amateur level filled with pros.
That's very true. And I think the best part about it is that it's all incentive based for the Challenger Cup. So like you have to
Mhm.
win to make money. So if you're deciding that you're not going to be moving across the world or doing whatever, so that you're going to stay home, be able to like I don't know, maybe see your family, your friends, and all that, but still try and compete. Um, I think it's really nice because it's going to incentivize scrimming. It's going to make it so that you're actually going to have to try. Like we're not going to see some of those like shenanigans that we maybe saw last year, just for people um, kind of cruising by just to make the minimum salary for the Challenger Cup. And yeah, I think it's going to make the games a lot better, and it's going to be really cool. And not only that, I think because it's going to incentivize so much scrimming and so much practice, you might see scenarios where like it was similar to this year, where the top two teams from each region or whatever in the Challenger Cup are probably going to be better than the bottom two teams in the SPL, and that's kind of what happened this past season. Um, and
I could
I think that's
very
very
easily
likely.
see that happening.
Yeah, I think it's pretty likely that'll happen.
Oh, that's a joke that me and him get, but you as the audience don't get because you don't know what we know. Good times. Yeah. Uh, God, do we know when rosters like because they're finalized at this point, right? Like they had until
Yeah,
or they
I'm
will be.
pretty sure. I think they're pretty much
Uh,
finalized. It's only, I mean, nothing's final until you sign a contract, but
right,
it's like I'm pretty sure there's like verbal agreements and everything has gone through, and
right.
everyone pretty much knows exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah,
But
it'll be interesting because I mean, league doesn't start till what March. So are we going to deal with like information
yeah,
lockout until then? How are they going to handle that? Because like
no way. They
that'll be
got to
rough.
announce it sooner, because I'm pretty sure the way it works is that we are going to be a part of the team starting in the new year, so that we start getting our salary. Like we should be getting paid at the beginning
Mm.
of or at the end of January, so that
Oh
it's a
wow.
12-month payment. So it's like spread across the entire year. Um, that
Are they
way,
doing a preseason for you guys this year? Because I know that was an idea last year and got scrapped. Is that
I'm
being
not sure.
revisited this year? Do you know?
I'm not sure, but I definitely think they should. It's literally like 4 months of downtime. Like there should be something going on. Like they should be trying to do anything, content, anything like that. I always feel
Right.
like it's just like I feel like it's different in real sports. Obviously, they have an off season. Physically, they need rest. But like
Mhm.
for us, I mean, obviously, physically, we need some form of rest because it can get pretty exhausting. But at the same time, like 4 months without any content, and literally all you have to do is like get on your computer and play something. Like obviously, I'm going to be streaming like all the time because I
Right.
have so much free time. But it's just like they need to do something during that time. So hopefully, they've like figured out a preseason thing.
It was like what 2 years ago at this point they did that exhibition game Like it was what, E United and SSG or something like that
Yeah, yeah, I
at
think
the
so.
esports arena, and that was like a really cool thing. I mean,
That was
they
cool.
brought in DM Brandon, like they did a whole different and new idea and executed on
Yeah,
it. And then like we haven't seen that again. And even the invitational this year was kind of not great in comparison to like
yeah,
the last 2 years. So it's like there's that itch for like exhibition matches or all-star matches, things like that to be done. And I feel like this would be like the perfect time because like you're coming off of Worlds, you have like a lot of you still have so many players down in Atlanta right now still, right? Like I would imagine.
yeah. There should
So
be.
you
Yeah,
could still utilize a lot of that talent to get some stuff done. So just, you know, I agree with you. There's got to be more content coming out from the esports side of things, at least. Like, just make more competitions happen, like a preseason,
yeah,
or that'd be so cool. Like a preseason all star tournament, because like even if we don't know the rosters, we could see people like just playing with random teams together behind. Like,
yeah.
I
That
don't
would be
know,
cool.
that'd be kind of cool.
I
So,
agree.
enough of off-season stuff. Let's talk about season 6. A little bit different from your season 5, just a smidge. How did this year compare on Rival to playing on that CLG squad?
It was a lot better. One, I mean, not only like team environment wise, but also just our performance and everything, and the
Mhm.
players' skill level and everything. Um, Obviously playing with two former world champions, and then Captain Twig and Arkil, Kenny, and Ben. Um, they were both really, really hungry. It was a really good team to be on. And obviously, with all the format changes and being like in being a LAN the entire season and being with them, hanging out with them, living with them, everything, it was awesome. I couldn't ask for a better season. Not only, I think, I mean, I could have asked for a better season performance wise,
Yeah.
just by one smidge, but um, just like living with them and just like having a good time and like creating memories and all that. I had an awesome time with them, and we got second place, but I think I said it, I tweeted it. I was like, second place with all the memories we made and hanging out and doing everything that we did throughout the year. It was definitely a good ride. So
I mean, it's definitely end over end, year after year, progress on you, right? Like you go from,
yeah,
being in the amateur circuit to being in the pro league to being in the finals. Like, now all that's left for you is, now you got to win. Now you got to win it all,
yeah,
right? Like that's the next
exactly.
step.
That's next year.
God. I mean, so pre MSI, you guys are coming in as one of like the biggest, baddest teams. Everybody's kind of pegging you, pegging you, Splice, and Renegades really as like the powerhouses going in. Just maybe not even Renegades at that point. That's kind of like recency bias. And after like
Yeah, yeah,
Renegades came in strong and then felt it off. So it was really you and Splice, and then Armada happens, and it's the rival story all over again. Kind of getting the first round and everything's like, what kind of blow was that to the team? What was kind of team environment and everything after that? Like MSI had to have been like a catalyst and a crucible for you guys to go through. And I'm kind of interested to see what all happened behind the scenes.
yeah. It was weird. So I think it was a weird day. I feel like we all kind of woke up like we knew what we wanted to do, but it wasn't like it didn't feel like tangible that day for whatever reason. Obviously MSI, and comparing it to Worlds is, it's a lot less important, and everyone kind of keeps that in the back of their head. Obviously it's something that everyone wants to win, but um, I don't know. I just felt like on that everyone just kind of woke up on the wrong side of the bed that day, and we went into the games. We were still confident. Everything obviously we were confident because it was a Challenger Cup team, and we were expected to win. We were supposed to win, but sometimes this is like a chess phenomenon. The Grandmaster players, whenever they lose, they usually lose to noob players or amateur teams because they don't really know what to expect. They never face them, so they're never like um, practice against whatever they're doing. And Armada, not that Armada's a noob team. That's not what I'm trying to say. They're filled with five like amazing players. I've teamed with some of them. It's just that they didn't even practice. Like they weren't even a team that practiced going into that LAN, right?
Mhm.
So it was weird, and I think there was a bit of that phenomenon coming in where it was just like we just did not know what to expect, and they kind of brought in stuff that nobody was really doing. Like they kind of, I wouldn't call it cheese, but they did some level 1 strats that not everyone was doing, and they kind of caught us off guard. It was a best of 3 at the end of the day. We were playing best of 5s all year, and I'm pretty sure, apart from the World's Finals, we were the best of 5, the best of 5 team all year. Like if it was a best of 5, we were one of the best teams at winning it because we were really good at coming back and adapting and learning against teams. But that specifically in that best of 3 with what they brought out and just like the way we woke up that day and I think I don't want to assume for my teammates, but maybe the level of importance that they brought into that LAN, I think with all those things combined, it just created a really bad scenario for us. However, since it was so bad, um, it allowed us to talk right after. We had a nice like discussion about everything and like our mentalities and everything because we didn't really prepare for Armada at all. We didn't like look at their VODs or anything like that. And we kind of decided thereafter that like we're never going to let that happen again. We're never going to underestimate a team. We're never going to take things lightly. And when there's money on the line, we should always try our 110%. And like we want to be the team that dominates. Like even if it's, who cares if it's not Worlds? We should win everything if we can.
Yeah, and I think that kind of really showed in the like phase 2. Like you guys came out, looked better, cleaner. You guys came and you took care of business almost every time out, and it was a very like you guys had been dominant in phase 1, but phase 2 was just like a different beast, kind of like the same
Yeah.
animal but different beast. God, I feel so cliched saying that.
No, it's good.
But
Teams had gotten
that's
better for phase 2 as well. So it was like,
yeah.
even though we only lost 1 set in the first phase, it kind of seemed like teams were probably at like 50% of their capacity, maybe. Like some teams still had like roster changes to come forth, and I think by the second phase, everyone was at 100%. So even though we didn't have the same record or a better record in phase 2, it seemed like we were more dialed in on what we wanted to do come to Worlds because everyone was like playing at 100% as far as rosters.
Yeah, for sure. Going into Worlds. All right. So before we talk about Worlds, I'll give you the option. I'll give you the out.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about all of the hiccups that happened with Worlds? I've talked to a few people, both behind the scenes, who have said that they don't want to, that if I do talk about it, they want to remain anonymous, but who don't want their name getting out there with all the problems. Do you want to discuss the problems that happened at Worlds?
Yeah, sure. I don't care.
All right. So I heard a lot of things, both firsthand and secondhand with the setups, right? And I have kind of come in this opinion, and you can disagree with me, you cannot say anything, but like I love that SK won, but it feels like SK got the benefit of a lot of different stuff going their way in regards to some of the technical stuff, going back to bugs. You guys experienced a really big one with Persephone that kind of changed that dynamic. Persephone getting banned, right? Because Panda Cat's too good at Smite game, apparently. Like that's something like that felt like the weirdest thing. I actually,
Yeah.
before we get into all that, I do want to ask, before Worlds, when you guys were scrimming, there was in the release statement from Skillshot, they said that they had talked to you guys, and you had a month on the patch, and if you experienced any issues, let them know. And then you guys get to Worlds, and whatever issue that was happening with crashing and all of that, that had been something that had been happening in scrims, and nobody let them know. Is that accurate, or is that not
I think
accurate?
so. I think so. I think it was because it's a problem that maybe happened with Max like in scrims because he's probably the only one playing Persephone, right?
Mhm.
I never like he never like told me. He never came up to me. He was like, "Hey, my computer was crashing during that scream." Like whenever something like that happens, it's kind of just like, "Oh, my computer messed up. Let me restart." Right? It's never like, "Oh, okay, let me take note of that and let me like transfer it to high res." So it
Right.
would have been on max to do that. But at the same time, a lot, like almost always, it seems like it's a PC issue. It's like, okay, well, when I play Persephone, that doesn't happen. So, like, it's probably just your
Mm,
PC. Like, something's like wrong with your PC, whatever. Probably should still report it. But like, if we were to discuss that, I'd be like, oh, it's probably a PC issue because that literally never happens to me.
right.
So there is that dynamic to it as well.
Well, there's also
Um,
the other problem, which was I don't know, did it affect you guys? Was the keyboard issue?
no, so that was actually that only affected HyperX keyboards. You're not sponsored by
Okay.
HyperX, are you?
No, 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 no,
Okay,
no.
okay. Well, it only happens with HyperX keyboards apparently. And I was talking to Vinny because he told us before a Dig and Toss set. Um, and the reason it was so important during that was because Dig and Toss is actually sponsored by them, so they actually had to use those keyboards. I think
Mm,
all 5 of them had to use those keyboards. Um, but he told me before the set that there's a more general issue with them, that they're causing computers to crash, they're causing programs to crash and stuff like that, because of the specific thing. Apparently, not just with Smite. That's what I was told right before the set. He
right.
was like, "I
Yeah.
googled this. Like, this is a thing happening right now. Like, there's a bunch of technical issues with HyperX keyboards. Blah blah blah." So he warned them. He told them about it. Obviously, if they're contracted to use those keyboards
Hmm.
at the world stage, like, what are they going to do? Plus, they've been using them all year. But I mean, at that point, I feel like I'm not really sure what position they could have been. Like, what could they have done better? Like, they told him about the keyboards. Like, I don't know.
So
It
I think
wasn't
the
like, what are they
problem
gonna?
is that they had been experiencing this issue for the prior month leading into Worlds, right?
Okay,
And then when they kind of came to Worlds and had the issue on that stage, they're like, "Yeah, we've been having this issue for like the last month." And then Hires just like, "Nobody fucking told us." Right? That I
oh yeah,
think
yeah,
if I'm looking at it, that's how I read it. And so that's I see both sides. Like I agree that like I've always kind of straddled that line back when like the Morrigan issues were like a big deal, right? Like I went on a whole Twitter tirade on against what was it then NRG about not reporting a game breaking bug in the middle of one of their sets because they're like
yeah,
we didn't think the admins would care. This is like the stupidest reason I've ever heard.
yeah, yeah.
But like I feel like some of that's on the players, but again, it's like this is something that's happening across multiple esports, multiple platforms with this keyboard. How does scale shot high res not know, and how do they not? I don't know. That seems like such a weird like. What do you do in that position if you're sponsored by this company and you have to use their keyboards? What do you do? And I
Yeah.
guess Biggie made the case that like they were given the like what 30 minutes to acclimate to a new keyboard. How big of a deal is switching a keyboard up?
That's actually a good question. The thing is, like, I have never used a HyperX keyboard, so I don't know exactly how it's like the structure and the positioning of the keys are on on the actual keyboard. The thing is, I don't think it's hard to switch at all. If you get the exact same, like, so I have a Ducky, it's an
Mm-hmm.
80%, so it has like the arrow keys and everything. And I just got it. I literally was like, okay, I want a Ducky. Everyone's always talking about them. They love them, so I want to try it. I switched from a Corsair keyboard that I used because of CLG. Like, I got sponsored by them, so I used a Corsair for a while, and then I just switched over to this, and it literally took me 5 minutes to get used to it because all the keys are in the exact same place. Now, if they're using a keyboard that maybe they use all of the F keys like F1, 2, 3, 4 to level their abilities. On some
Mm-hmm.
keyboards, those are in different spots. Like, they're literally not in the same spot as they are like compared to the number 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, they're not right above it. So
Right.
I could see in like those scenarios where like that would really mess them up, like, because they literally can't even like level their abilities like they would in a team fight. Like, it's just not going to happen. They're going to miss level. Something bad's going to happen. But if they're able to find a keyboard that's just the exact same positions and it's just like the same keys, because most pro players use mechanical keyboards nowadays, they know exactly what type of switches they use. I'm pretty sure, especially at DreamHack, they're probably selling every type of keyboard there is, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they probably could have gotten used to it really easily in 30 minutes. They say it's like, oh, we've been acclimated to it all year, but I mean, what are you acclimated to? It's just the positioning of the keys. Like that's all. That's the only thing that you're used to. If you can just find a keyboard exactly like it, you'll be fine. Now, I don't
I
think
will
it's
say
exactly
that
on
is
them. It's not their
sometimes that
responsibility,
is
but
yeah, sometimes it is hard to like F dot like he and you mentioned it is like finding a keyboard where F1 and 1 and like all of those keys are aligned. That's hard to
yeah.
do. Like most of the time they're like catty cornered to each other and slanted or
Mhm.
whatever. And like having moved to a keyboard that does have that setup, it's so much better. And
Yeah.
I could see where that problem, but I think I agree. Like it's a keyboard. Like
Yeah.
they almost every manufacturer can make whatever you would need at that point. I don't know. And at
Yeah.
DreamHack, they've got how many different sellers? Or not even at
Yeah.
DreamHack, like around the surrounding area. You've got that and
If it
having
was
that
a
issue
mouse,
going in.
I'd be a little bit more like lenient
Yeah,
to
because
the fact that it's like because
that
that's a little bit
shaped to your
different. That was something.
hand, like different
Yeah.
like yeah, there's different weights, different sensitivities. You got to
Yeah.
dial that in.
Exactly.
Like that takes
Because
a lot
if
more.
you miss something by an inch, like if you barely do not like flick to something, like that could be the difference, right? And that's something that you have to get used to on a new mouse. Whereas a keyboard, all you have to do is click the key in the position that it was before that you're used to. So if you can find one like that, you should be fine. So
Okay. So we've got the keyboard, that issue sorted out. The next thing that so the next biggest issue was audio. And some teams figured it out, some teams didn't. I don't know if you guys were one of the teams that figured out like the audio mixer was causing like a lot of problems with PCs. And like the problems that I heard like ranged from being just like audio was quiet and you couldn't hear if you were trying to use the earbuds to it caused computer slowdowns. Uh, can you verify or gonna say anything on that?
yeah, I don't think my team had any issues with the computer messing up because of the audio. We definitely had a ton of issues with the just the audio itself, like the being able to hear. I mean, there were a lot of people there. There was probably I don't know the exact numbers, but for our games, there were probably like 2,000 people in the crowd. It was insane. Like we had a ton of people there, and there were a ton of people like screaming and doing all that. So it was just hard to hear because of the live event. But it was also just I don't know if there was definitely something wrong with the setup because you couldn't even like it was like a different Smite game. You were basically playing Smite. I was basically playing like I play on stream with Siren Quest on, and it's like blared to the top. I don't hear anything in game. Like it's so different playing with audio versus without audio, and we basically all playing with that, or at least for me. Some of my teammates I think said that they found a good balance. They could hear the game and still be able to hear our comms, but I was having issues either hearing the game, hearing my teammates, um, and it was rough. Like people were talking about it. Like some gods get better when you can't hear things. Like Loki, he
Mhm.
obviously wasn't played, but if you can't hear Loki at all, like you can't hear when he goes invis, you can't hear where he's like walking or anything like that. You can't like sound whore like you would at home. Like it's actually really hard to play against him. A good example of something that's actually meta is Morgan. Like if you can't hear her 3, you can't hear her user 1 to stun people. Like it's gonna be really hard to play against her. So stuff like that actually changes if you can't hear the game or
Mhm.
if it's too loud. But I feel like they need to do something with the audio next year because it's just like it's a completely different game when you can't hear things.
Yeah, 100%. I think like that's something I feel like gets lost between your casual player versus like playing at the highest levels. Like you don't really understand how vital and critical sound can be at those
Yeah,
stages because those sound cues really do matter and can make a huge difference between a team fight going your way or it not. Getting that extra edge of surprise, like you said, Morgan being super meta, especially super relevant at Worlds. Zatman
yeah.
and SK really liked that Morgan pick. And do
Hmm.
you think that played a part into why they kind of went toward Morgan? Is that like was that just still like just a pocket zap strat?
I think maybe I think that he probably like scrimmed with it a ton and just thought it was the best thing going in, and that's probably exactly what happened. But then they may have had a discussion in the middle of that land, like, hey, this is probably a little bit better now as well. Like, let's value it even maybe higher than they were before, because
Mhm.
obviously with the sound and everything. Um, I know that for a specific example for us was after we played Sanguine, we were talking to Haddix, and he was playing Jorm. So Jorm also got better because his invis actually makes a sound every second. Makes a little
Mhm.
pulsing sound, and that lets the enemies know like when he's near him. But you can't hear that at all. So he gets a little bit better at land.
Hmm.
But actually, the reverse of that was he got dash taunted by Athena, and he said that he didn't hear the dash or the taunt at all. So he didn't use his ult, like get out. And if he had heard it, he could have ulted out, and it actually might have changed the course of a team fight. So that was
Oh
like
wow.
another example of just like the game just changes so much, like when it's hard to hear anything,
That
you know.
makes a lot of sense. Like watching, like I from a casual perspective, looking at the worlds, like it was really weird. There was like a lot of sloppiness. And I think like that what that just comes down to is like just sound cues, like little things being off like that.
Definitely.
And it was just weird to watch. Going and you guys go up against Sanguine. Was there any worry on your guys' end that you were going to get, you know, first rounded? Like PBM and Max, they got first rounded the year before by SK, and then you guys get first rounded by MSI at MSI by Armada. You know, was there that fear of like, guys, are we gonna shit the bed at the national state? Like at Worlds, is this gonna happen? Like,
Yeah, there definitely was probably a little bit of that, especially some residual effects of like MSI. Just like the fact that we got first rounded there is probably the main thing that like contributed to that. I don't think they were thinking about. I don't think they cared about the year before with SK. Like I think they had gotten past that. There was no like mental effects from that. I think it was mainly just a little bit of that from MSI, the fact that we got first rounded. So I think we kind of went in with those nerves, but I think that's kind of why we drafted full pressure in the first game and kind of just hard stomped them. And like that really just was like, okay, like this is what we do. We can easily do this. This is like just another amateur team that we beat all the time in scrims. Um, and I think we got over that pretty quickly. I think once we
mm,
loaded into the game and maybe got our first blood, it was like, okay, all of that's gone. And it wasn't even a lot of it, like because we were very confident going into Worlds. We were um, like we knew what we needed to do to get the job done. So uh, yeah, it wasn't too bad.
okay. SK was not SK. Sanguine was one of those teams where it's like, could be dangerous if they got the right pocket picks. Did you guys place a lot of emphasis on like, we're not gonna let them get the hell, we're not gonna let them get, the King Arthur or the Hachiman, like, those very sanguine picks that, I think they had like their perfect comp in their run through the open bracket. Did you guys kind of like take notice of that and be like, all right, we are not going to play around with this. We're not going to let them get their like what they want to get.
Yeah, we definitely did because we also got to watch them at the gauntlet or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
the qualifier LAN. So we got to pretty much figure out everything that they wanted to play. I think there's positives and negatives to being playing at that LAN. You get a nice warm up. You get a nice LAN warm up if none of your teammates have ever played at LAN. Like you kind of figure out the meta or dictate the meta going into Worlds, but you also let every other team that's going to Worlds watch all of your games. And if you're trying to win as much as you possibly can, you're going to show everything that you want to play. So we were able to learn pretty much everything they wanted to play because of that LAN, and because of that, with all their comfort picks and everything like that, we did focus on it a bit because not only are they going to be playing on Worlds for the first time, um, there are a bunch of amateur players that aren't very like well known in the scene, and maybe they don't have a lot of experience playing at a LAN. So they're definitely going to be a little bit nervous. So if we can take away a lot of their comfort picks and stuff that they know how to play with their eyes closed, like it's going to help us a lot. But at the end of the day, if they're not good gods, like if we just don't value them that high, for example, like Jingwei, I think we let through because we just didn't value it that high.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like we're gonna let it through. Like we know how to beat it. There's a reason we don't value it, and we're gonna show you why we don't value it. Stuff like that. Um, But for stuff like Hell that we actually do value a bit, and they just play really well around it, and we're not very practiced against it. Stuff like that, it kind of just it depends on the god. So I would say that we definitely targeted them for their comfort picks if we thought the god valued it enough.
Okay, sounds reasonable, logical to me. Then you go up the next round against Dignitas, and I really like the way that the brackets kind of matched up. Obviously, you and Dig were kind of the rivals to each other, right? Like it was you and Dig, and I feel like Splice and Renegades were like those were the two matchups that everybody kind of wanted to see, and the two teams that each was compared to. Was that is that playing in your guys' head as well? Is that like you wanted to take on Dignitas, you guys wanted to put them down and use them to your road to finals, or was that like whoever's in front of us will be like we don't care who we like? There's nobody we want to play more than anybody else.
It was a bit of the latter, but we obviously lost our first set of the entire season was against Dig, and we lost 2-3 to them in a set that we thought we should have won. Then we played them again in the second phase, and we beat them 3-1 pretty handedly. And I think by the time we got to Worlds, we have pretty much decided that we would never lose that team ever again. Like we just knew exactly how to beat them. We knew we knew a lot of their weaknesses and how to like punish them and everything like that. So in the sense that we wanted a free free trip to the finals, we did want to play them, but in the sense that we just like had a rivalry with them, not so much because I think coming to that, once we got to that point, we kind of decided for ourselves that we were really confident playing against them. But on the flip side, we weren't as confident playing against Splice and Renegades because we actually lost to both of them in the second phase. We beat both of them in the first phase. Splice, it was not the greatest win ever because they were having some roster changes and stuff, and they had ended up being a different team for the second phase. But Renegades was the same. And we felt like in both of those sets, we completely lost them. Like we made mistakes that gave them the win, and it wasn't so much to them. They just, obviously, it's whatever team plays best. If you make less mistakes, you're going to win. But we kind of felt like we had the ability to beat them better than we showed in the second phase. So I'd actually say that we had more of a rivalry with Splice and Renegades, and we still wanted to prove that like we were better than them, and that those were just fluke sets and stuff like that.
So when you talk about like we decided we were never going to lose the Dignos again, you had their weaknesses written down, and everything. Was it just like an index card that said "play for early game"? Was that
much
all that it said?
Yeah, pretty much.
Were you scared after watching like the last week of SPL when Dignitas finally decided, hey, let's try an early game comp, and then they did it and it worked really well? Were you guys like, oh shit, maybe they figured it out, maybe they know what they need to do now, and then instantly relieved and like, oh no, they still haven't figured it out?
A little bit, but like without like being mean, we also kind of just thought that a few of their players weren't good enough to do that. Like they weren't good enough to like be really good at that, or to make it work, or to play off of pressure and like be the bullies that they're supposed to be with it. So we were still confident, like no matter what they brought. And that kind of showed in the game 3. Like we played them in game 3 and they played literally full pressure everywhere. We didn't have a single lane that won. Like I was Vamana into King Arthur. That's not a great matchup. They had a Pele. Pele pretty much wins every jungle matchup. They had an RDO support. That's like one of the most high pressure supports you can pick early. And I think they went Freya Neath, which is just like a good like backline. So they pretty much won every single lane in game 3, and they actually got ahead a little bit early. But we were like, again, like we're just really not afraid of like what they can do with it, and we ended up coming back and winning. So I think it proved right.
So you've kind of tooted your team's horn about adapting mid set and everything, being able to learn. I have to ask it because it's on everybody's mind. Why let Belair play Achilles the entire tournament? Especially you, and especially your team, when you are the poster boy for Achilles highlights in the SPL.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tough one. I would say that maybe we messed up a little bit. I think what we thought during that was that Achilles really wasn't contributing to the wins or losses that much. I would say that game one, he definitely did his job, and like part of the reason we lost is because I didn't have pressure, but it also was because of the Circuit support. Like their Circuit support invaded my blue, so now I'm like already like I'm kind of in a rough matchup if I don't have a blue buff. I'm getting behind because their Circuit kind of invaded all of our jungle and kind of did whatever she wanted. I'd say that she was the reason we lost game one. She kind of dictated the early game, and it put us really far behind. So it really didn't have much to do with Achilles. Game two, I played Thor into Achilles. I completely bodied him. I went like 7-0 and 8. So then, and I was comfortable with that matchup. Like people were saying, oh, it's like not a good matchup for Thor, but I was fine with playing it. Like I didn't care. Completely bodied that matchup. I played Osiris in game three against his Achilles, completely bodied him again. Like I was literally like 4 levels up. And that was a game that we threw. We should have won. We were up like 15K. So the only game where it was like, okay, Achilles did a lot was game four. And game four was a weird one, a really weird one. And I can talk about it a little bit in a second. But as far as Achilles goes, I soloed him. He soloed me back. That was kind of a wash. It was pretty much a wash matchup. We were having some struggles across the map. I think Kenny died like 3 times in the span of 10 minutes getting ganked. So I wouldn't say like Achilles was just a good pick for them because I think he's a really hard god to just like fight around and to gank a lot. And that was like part of our strategy going into that matchup, into that set. So I do think it was really good for them to for him to be comfortable and to be on a god that's really hard to kill. But I think if he had played some other gods, maybe we would have won that set because I could have maybe done something a little bit different in lane and maybe punished him a little bit harder. But he could have played Jorm and he would have been just as hard to kill. He could have played Arthur, Osiris, and he would have been just as hard for me to kill. It's just like, I don't know. I don't know if it really had too much to do with Achilles when you really go back and look at it, but I could be wrong.
I mean, public perception was, at least for solo lane, that like Jormungandr was like the best solo laner, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Yorm was picked or banned a single time that final set at all.
Yeah.
So it was like interesting from there. I also like that. I've been looking forward to like talking to you about like some of these like the team comps and like getting in the nitty gritty because like as a coach, like I really both enjoyed and hated this world because I was looking at it from like a completely different angle than usual. The first game comp I felt was interesting because it felt like you guys kind of went away a little bit from a lot of the stuff that you had been doing. I think specifically for me, PBM on the Ama felt weird after watching him on a lot of his other picks. And looking at that draft, it feels like flexing the Thor into the jungle, the Erlong into the support at that point, and then you playing the Ama would have maybe been the better team comp. Is that just me not understanding what you guys were trying to go for? Was there like you guys plan in place? This is what you wanted. I just, you don't have to like. I mean, it's the next season, right? Like, could we talk about like a little bit of these strats? I don't know.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we can. I think so there was I think this will solve a lot of people's like question marks around our comps was Thor for us was me playing it every time. If we picked Thor, I was going to be the one playing it. Partly because we didn't ever practice it in jungle. Like it wasn't something that we liked playing. We like playing magical junglers. We like playing like frontline junglers that maybe can initiate and can be tanky. And then a certain few assassins that Ben really liked to play that he thought were really good. But Thor wasn't really in our wheelhouse for the jungle. If we were picking it, it was going to be me playing it. So in that comp specifically, maybe we could have not picked Erlang, and then we could have gone, or we could have picked Erlang and put it in, or not. We should have not picked Ama. We could have put Erlang in support. I could have played Thor, and then we could have just played a completely different jungler. That's the scenario that maybe could have happened. I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly what happened in the draft phase. I kind of forget. But I think that kind of solves a lot of people's question marks as far as Thor. The problem with that set as well was that Sam on Thor was like a win, like for them. If Sam got Thor, Like they're probably going to win the game. At least in hindsight, that's what I think. And even the one game he did get Thor, it was the third game when we were up 15K, and then we threw. But part of the reason we lost that is because Sam was just dunking on our back line and killing people like every time. He was just doing really well on Thor, getting 2-man dunks, getting dunks with people having their actives down, or maybe even having their actives up and still killing them. So in that set specifically, the reason Thor was valued so high for me, and then the reason I played it in 3 games, was because if Sam got it, it'd be really bad. And it could even be a flex for them. Like, we didn't really know. Like, Belair could have played it. I think Thor's a pretty good solo. So it's like he could have played it, and it could have been a flex for them, but it wasn't a flex pick for us. So that was a bit of an issue. I think we actually would have won Worlds if Thor was a flex pick for us, or if we just said, like, fuck it, like, sorry, if we just said F it and just, like, not pick Thor
you're
at
good
all.
here. We cuss here.
We just said F it and not pick Thor at all in game 4. Just been like, okay, well, let's just let them have it. Like, we should have realistically won that last game with it. Let me just pick another pressure god and try and pressure him out again and just try and run it down again. So there's some things in hindsight I think we could have done better on, but I think that solves a lot of the question marks that people have, and maybe you specifically, is that Thor wasn't a flex pick for us. It was really valuable for them, so it made our picks and bans a little bit awkward just against them.
I think so. That was like one of my big questions. The second one, and this is all related to SK specifically, right? We're in the finals. We've seen enough of them. We know what they are. We know that Belair is going to go for the Achilles. We know that Sam's going to be playing either Thor, Hunbats, Susan, whatever, like, right? He's got those range of gods. The other one is Paul. So, right, Paul infamously has a shallower god pool than released Kalas, right? Like Kalas, well, maybe not, because Kalas had what, 2 gods in his god pool? He had what, a thing of Fafnir? He had 3, right? So just shy. He's just about Kalas at release, right? And so Paul played that. He's got his Hell, he's got the Uller, the Merlin, and the Persephone, but you didn't have to worry about the Persephone. So I think one of the big questions is throughout the tournament, and it wasn't just you guys, but allowing him to get the Merlin. That was like one of the questions for Renegades too, right? Is Funball had played a lot of Merlin and looked really good on the Merlin, and they never took that away from them. And then you guys kind of go in and you let him get the Hell the first game, and then you take the Hell away and you let him get the Merlin in the second game. What was kind of the thought process in going targeting out Paul specifically? Is his god pool, was his level of play really that big a problem, or was it just like the Kalas effect? It was like, well, we know he can only play X, X, and X, so we're gonna make him try to play something else.
I think it was actually, so I think the specific gods that we banned, it was usually, so we banned Uller, I think, every time. And the reason we did that wasn't specifically because we thought, oh, it was only god Paul could play, or because it was like this or that. It was just because we didn't want him to have mid pressure. We didn't want him to be able to like bully Max. Like, we wanted Max to have mid pressure, and Uller's pretty much a win all when it comes to mid pressure. Like, if you get Uller, he's just like one of the best ever. So we really didn't want him to have that. So that was number 1. That was a specific thing that we just didn't want to happen. And then Hell was another one that was like, that's not really mid pressure, but it's also a win condition in the sense that it's Hell. And like, again, we didn't really have a lot of practice against it. It was kind of just like a really annoying god. The thing about Hell, though, is that we actually scrimmed against it a few times. Just, I think, towards the end of the season, we had scrimmed against it a few times against a few separate teams, I think, and we stomped it every time. But there is a level of like scrim versus SPL level, like gods. Like, so some gods get a lot better on game day because the game slowed down a little bit and some things change. And I would say Hell is an example of that. Like, if you can't punish her as much as you can in like a scrim early on, then she gets a lot more value because she can kind of she can even win a game from like 5K down with her healing. And her damage. Her damage is insane. So Hell was another guy that was just like, okay, we just don't really want to deal with, like, this is just something that we don't have a ton of practice against and we don't really want to deal with. So we specifically targeted that as well after game 1. And Merlin's weird as well because we didn't really think it was we thought it was really good, and it was probably the best mage we could have played, or anybody could have played if all the other things are banned, like Isis, Persephone, and stuff. Um, but it wasn't something that we were afraid if they got it. Like we knew we could win the game. Like game 2, like we won the game pretty much regardless. It didn't matter what he picked that game. The game was over. We won the game. Like he could have been playing Persephone that game and we would have won. So we kind of figured like we can let them have Merlin, and if we target the areas that we want to target to win the game, it's going to be over regardless. So that was kind of our mindset going into it. The only thing that kind of flipped that or made it hard to do our game plan was like mid pressure, and that's why we banned stuff like Uller. But in hindsight, I personally, I kind of thought this during the set. Obviously, I think this a lot more now. But I kind of thought that we should have given them Uller, let them play their Uller, and just have Max play a Hunter as well, and just have him like kind of box that pressure in mid, and just not have to worry about like the team comps that they were running, because they were running a lot of they were running hunters in dual lane. So if they're going to play double hunter, it's going to make it awkward for the rest of their team. Like Sam's not going to be able to play a magical jungler because that just wasn't something he was playing at the time. He wanted to play those assassins, and Valair obviously wanted to play Achilles every game. So it made it so Zap had to play the mage, which is perfectly fine for us. So I think it would have actually helped out our cause there in the finals, but obviously I think that a little bit more in hindsight.
Right. I think the best game, looking at like the adaptability from you guys, I think hands down for me comes in that game 3, because you guys, everything that I had been wanting teams to do against SK, you guys kind of just did. Having you guys moved away from the Thor, you're like, put you on the warrior. I wanted to see you on a warrior, kind of be that. You know, Thor does like the hybrid bruiser stuff, but I just wanted I want the lane bully. I was rooting for FineOkay Herc, even though it's not meta. I was wanting it. I wanted to come out so bad. But you get the Osiris to body up against Belair, right? I don't think Belair had a great showing on Achilles, but I still feel like nobody kind of punched him in the mouth. I think you were able to do that better than probably anybody else he really went up against. And then putting Pandacat on the Merlin, putting Arkle on the Uller, like just the way that pick band went, I think that was so good for you guys. Even though you end up losing that set, like that was the adapting that came from you guys was really interesting to watch in real time. And how that's that game. As soon as that game is done, I was like, oh, SK's winning Worlds, huh? How
Yeah.
how big of a hit was losing that game? Because watching it was a huge hit, and I can't imagine playing through that.
Yeah, so I think momentum is like really, really big in esports, especially in like the grand finals of a world championship. Like they had a lot of people cheering for them, and I would be lying if I said it didn't like get to me a little bit. Like just hearing it like throughout the game, especially at the end of that game, how loud the crowd got for them after we threw like all that stuff. I it made it really hard to play that game for like level headed and like 100%. And you could tell, like, I didn't play well that game for. Like, let's be honest, I missed like some abilities I should never miss. And I played some scenarios that I shouldn't ever play like I did. Um, and I would say that after we threw that game 3, that it made game 4 really hard to win. And I would also say if we didn't throw that game 3, we probably would have won the set, in my opinion, because we stomped in game 2. Game 3, we're stomping them, and we would have just drafted very similar, same pressure. If they drafted pressure as well, we were going to beat them at it. We were the best team at doing that, and we would have won game 4, and it would have been 3-1 easy. But after what happened in game 3, it was definitely very deflating. The crowd really made it even worse, which is weird because I think we had pretty much a very similar amount of fans. Like people were cheering for both, but people really wanted to see SK win. Like they were the Cinderella story. Zatman, everyone loves Zatman, and well, actually, everyone pretty much loves everyone on that team. They're all awesome guys. Like they're all really nice. Neil, I'm really good friends with Neil and Sam, and it was tough. It was honestly that's the best word I can use. It was just tough for all of us after that, because it was a pretty shitty loss and it was in our hands. I mean, we had 2 Phoenixes down, I think. It was 2 Phoenixes down. I'm not really sure.
I think so. Yeah.
We're winning the game. If I could go back and play it, I'm pretty sure would have played a couple scenarios a little bit different, and the game would have been over. We would have won. Especially that last scenario where Ben dove their back camps, and then I followed him, and then we let our back line kind of just get dove, and everything's falling apart, and we die, and then we lose the game, and it's like, yeah. I would say that it was just a very bad series of unfortunate events that lost us that game 3, and then but all credit to SK, especially Sam. Like I said before,
Yes.
with his Thor dunks, like the way he played those were insane. Zap and Paul actually were really, really annoying to dive towards the end of that game. They were playing really well together, just bouncing off of each other and staying alive and doing damage to, like, especially me. So credit to them, but I do think it was in our hands, and we kind of made some crucial mistakes. And like I said, they pretty much won the set in that game 3, and we pretty much lost the set in that game 3. And if we had done anything different and won that game 3, I think we would have taken Worlds.
I wholeheartedly agree. I watching that game live, it really was like, as soon as that game was done, I was like, SK wins Worlds. Like there is I can't imagine any team coming back from that. Like that, just call it tilt factor, call it the momentum, whatever. Like that's just that below. There's no way you're playing at 100% that next game. Like it was rough. And I even started this saying, like, I think that SK were the benefactors of a lot of different things going their way. I always follow that up with Sam played out of his mind, Neil played out of his mind, and Zap. Like I haven't been a Zapman fan for a while, but even he was like very crucial in a lot of fights, keeping them going. He made some insane plays that I don't think other ADCs can make. Not because they're not good enough, just they're not Zapman. Like Zapman just makes those plays happen because of who he is.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Across the board, they just went nuts. And it as much as I wanted you guys to win, watching the Cinderella story is also really satisfying as well. And it's like, all right, I guess that's a good option too, right?
Yeah.
So Worlds, you come this close. I honestly, what was the team reaction after that? I mean, PBM's been there. He's won it all. He's lost it all now. Like, and I'm assuming Mike is like the de facto leader of the team, right? Like he is the head of the operation. He's the heart and soul. What was his reaction? Like what did he say to you guys? Like what was the immediate, like as soon as you guys walk off and it's just you guys, kind of, if you're allowed or anything, like what was kind of the talk?
It was pretty much just like keep our heads up. We had, like, after everything that happened and like what we did throughout the year, we were pretty much one of the best teams throughout the year, if not number one. Throughout the whole season, we played pretty consistent apart from MSI. We got second at Worlds, and it was pretty much what I said earlier. Like we had a really fun, good year. Like we all have improved in our lives. Like if you just go look at Mike, like he has been getting so much healthier. He's been like just like been enjoying life more. Like we just had like a really good year together. Like it, not just in games, but in life, right?
Right.
So it was pretty much like we got second place with like a year full of like memories and everything like that. Like is definitely a good run, and like we were proud of it. Obviously, we were disappointed because we still thought we were the best team. We still thought, like, obviously we made mistakes, and like that probably should have been our finals. But with all that said, like it is what it is, and like we just had to, like, pretty sure Mike was just like, let's just relax, like let's have a fun weekend, let's enjoy ourselves. We can like look back at this later, and that's pretty much what we all thought as well. We kind of all realized that it is what it is, and we'll figure it out.
All right.
The thing about it was that right after I walked off, though, I wasn't like, I'm not like really that emotional, but obviously Bria was there and her mom was there, and I had a bunch of like friends and stuff there. And she was crying. She walked up to me and she was
Oh,
crying because she really wanted me to win. She wanted us to win. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I don't think I don't think I started crying, but I definitely got very close if I didn't cry, because just because she was crying and she walked up to me. So
right.
um, yeah.
So, uh, I think that really covers all of Worlds, that breakdown. I guess the only questions around Worlds is, uh, how old are you now, Alec? You're 21, right? You're
23.
you're
23.
23. All right. Did
Yeah.
you do any shots with APAM? APAM.
No, actually, I think he was.
Oh,
I was drinking at the after party, but he was walking around and asking if anyone wanted shots, and I think I remember. I think I remember saying, "No, I'm good," because I don't remember exactly. I don't remember exactly, to be honest. I do
because
remember him
you'd
asking.
already had a couple shots and you didn't need
Yeah,
any
yeah,
more.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Basically, yeah. I was like, all right, I'm chilling at this point, but I remember him asking people if they wanted shots. Of course, he always does.
Yeah. So this is you didn't make Worlds last year, did you? With
No, no, no.
CLG? I'm trying. Right.
We
But
were right on the edge.
yeah. With World, you have how many Worlds have you been to? Like
That was my first
not
one.
just as a that was your first Worlds at all? Like not
Yeah.
not as a
Here.
player, but like going at all.
Oh, okay. Going, that was my third. I went to the one E United one. That was my
Okay.
first time going in person, and
That was a
then
good
I
one.
went to the next. I went to the next one as an analyst. That was season
Mhm.
5 with Splice,
Yeah.
and then last year, obviously, I went as a player. So
Okay. How does it stack up? What like going as like you've been what a fan and then working the event as an analyst and then working the event as a player.
yeah,
Like
kind of getting
I can
everything.
imagine it's very different experiences between the player and the other two. Uh, which one is more enjoyable? Is the guy? I feel like the player has its like its upsides and
Uh,
downsides.
Yeah, I would say the most enjoyable obviously is playing, because that's what I want to do. I want to be able to compete. I'm very competitive. I want to be able to win. So
Mm-hmm.
when I'm watching it the entire time, I'm just thinking, I just want to be up there. Like, I can be up there. I can be the one winning. I can be the one competing. Um, so that level makes it the most enjoyable, because I just want to be able to play. But there is a level of stress that comes with playing that entire weekend. And it's supposed to be a fun weekend. Obviously, I'm having fun, but it's also
Mm-hmm.
very stressful. And obviously, I'm not able to do like what all the fans are doing, which is like go out and drink Friday night, have fun, like come back, watch games, just chill, hang out with friends that they haven't seen all year. Like, I'm not able to do that. Like, we're focused in like the night before, we're like all hanging out, like watching VODs, like figuring out what we want to do. So there's a level of stress that comes with it. But like I said, if I'm going as a fan or as an analyst and I'm just hanging out with friends and having fun, but the entire time in the back of my head I'm thinking, oh, I should be the one competing for that money. I should be the one like proving that I'm the best in the world. Like, of course, it's gonna make it be the player is the most enjoyable. You know.
Yeah, obviously. All right, I love to hear it. Another like a side thing is you rival as a team. Were you guys all living in the same house all year, or were you traveling every like so often?
um, so we all had a house. Permanently living there was Mike, Kenny, Ben, Captain Twig, and Max Panicat, and Slaney. Sorry, and Slaney, our coach.
Mm-hmm.
But I had like a fortunate situation, because I've been with Bria for 6 years. Like, I'm gonna propose to her soon, and like I'm not gonna like it's pretty weird to be in a relationship like that and then like move out for like 6 months. Obviously, some people
Mm-hmm.
can do it. Like some people, especially like people in the military, like you can go away and still hold a relationship. But for something like Smite, and if I can find a scenario where I can be able to do both, like I can still live with my girlfriend, like still do things down here that I do, and like see people, see family. Um, like, because Bria couldn't move, she was in college. She's literally about to graduate. She's getting a teaching job. She's going to be teaching 11th grade English soon, so that's pretty cool.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, so I was committed to that, but I was also committed to Smite. And since I only live, Florida is obviously a border state to Georgia. It's a 6-hour drive, and it's only like a 45-minute flight from Orlando to Atlanta. So I was able to get a pretty fortunate scenario where I basically lived in both places. So what I would do is I would fly up a week before our games. I would hang out with a team, get all that good bonding and good talk and like working out together and scrimming for a week worth of practice with each other. And then I would play my games and then I would fly home for a week because we played every other week basically. So I basically lived in each place for a week, every other week.
Okay.
And I was the only person doing that. Partly because obviously a European can't fly out every other week. Like that's not going to happen. That's not enjoyable. That's like a 20-hour flight. No one wants to do that. And then also because I just was able to strike a really good deal with Rival, and I was making most of the content with Rival. So as far as like streaming and like YouTube and stuff like that. So I'd say I got a pretty good deal, and I was pretty blessed this season to be able to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Really excited to see what you do this upcoming season. Hopefully, I mean, I don't think there's really a reality where you're not on a roster. To the people,
well, I can tell you right now that I am, but
I mean, I know you are, but like,
I know you are, but for anyone watching, I will be in the SPL in season 7.
FineOkay, you hear it here first. FineOkay confirmed he will be in the SPL this next season. So, really excited to see this next season with you. And you know, I'm sure me and you will talk here after the show ends. But really enjoyed having you on again. Especially, I really loved the breakdown. Us going through the world's finals bracket, matchups and everything. I hope everybody who was watching kind of learned a little bit more about kind of decision making and things like that. It was really fun. Before I let you go, is there anything you want to say? Any shout outs you want to give?
Just shout outs to the fans who continue to support us even though we lost. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I appreciate all the support and all the love that we got even at Worlds. So
all right, so you can go. I mean, if you're do I even need to plug your social? If they're watching this, they're not coming for me. They're coming for you. So they already know. Yeah. Thanks for coming. Thanks for joining. FineOkay. Best of luck in season 7, and hopefully we'll get you on again before like 6 months. Yeah.
Sounds good.
All right. All right. That's it for our show today, everybody. Thanks for watching. Well, hopefully you like this content. This is probably what the rest of the off-season content is going to look like. Just doing long-form interviews. I'm trying to reach out to Barra so that we can do another 3-hour-long interview like we did last time. Jesus Christ. He's yet to get back to me. He's a busy man, but I'm going to track him down. And then I'm talking to a few others. I think tomorrow, Thursday, I'm doing an interview with Emilzy, and we've been trying to get him on for forever. So we're going to talk a lot about season 6 and talking about his decision to walk away from the SPL and everything like that. So tune in next week for that. And I will see you next time around the Battleground. Goodbye, everybody.